What we prohibit and why we prohibit it is or should be based on considerations of sensitivities, considerations which make us safer, stronger, or more resilient. Ironically, the opposite is sometimes the case, and in seeking to become more secure, we actually become more vulnerable. I remember assessing the vulnerability of a data centre for a large multinational client based in a faraway, not-to-be-named country. The cooling systems for the computers had been removed from the roof and placed only a short grenade throw from the fence and adjacent roadway to accommodate a panoramic vista for executives at their end-of-week barbecues. My vulnerability assessment report, like the child's ubiquitous homework, was eaten by the dog. My camera's memory card confiscated, and evidence of my consulting work was erased, even to the extent of non-payment. No photos, no paperwork in another of its various forms. I ought to have known better, courtesy of an early indicator of this culture, which I'll call the lost luggage fiasco lesson. You may have already picked where this is going. I don't mind not having my luggage waiting on the carousel. I didn't mind it taking more than 3 days to eventually turn up. I did mind my team member who went to get the luggage and associated paperwork needed for insurance claims being bullied to tears by refusal to hand over the luggage until he gave them all of my paperwork, which was then torn up in front of him. No paperwork, no foul. Our own domestic culture has different but similar weaknesses associated with the way we build a false sense of security. An illustration that springs readily to mind is a gig I did for a critical infrastructure TISN, Trusted Information Sharing Network, which commissioned me to facilitate a desktop exercise. I couldn't access their risk assessment register as I was not cleared. So I built a credible scenario to bring down interdependent infrastructure and grind a capital city to a halt, using only public domain sources to identify key vulnerabilities. Expert risk assessments had yet to identify this particular weakness, and this gap in the risk register was too embarrassing for me to use to open the discussion exercise with. So, as a workaround, we had a credible, respected stakeholder announce that a realistic and feasible scenario had been identified, which would have the following impacts, ... Please prepare to explore what this means. For me, it raised some serious questions about relying on a closed set of secret expertise, of saying, albeit in a different way than the above examples, no photos. Defensive, closed cultures are not always bad. However, it's always worth monitoring and checking that when we apply this approach, it itself is supported by risk-based considerations beyond the narrow lens of technocrats or people caught in an overly sensitive bubble. In a world becoming more interconnected and more interdependent, it is important that information management errors such as no photos thinking are not used to paper over and in so doing compound vulnerabilities.